Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. And this is episode number 351. I never know. I start off these episodes all over the board, so I'm never consistent. But anyway, I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you're thawing out like we are here in the DC area finally.
Yeah, no, I mean that's one of the top subjects for me is like the weather. The temperature is finally looks like it's going to be somewhat consistently above freezing or whatever, so that we can actually get somewhere.
Yeah, even at night. So it won't be refreezing for a few days. So then there's one more little cold snap coming, but people who don't live here. So we got about 8 inches of snow 3 weeks ago, and it has not moved because it hasn't been above freezing. I mean, we went 22 days without getting above freezing or something like that. Some crazy number that they haven't done here in years and years and years.
Yeah, and the complicating factor, as we've talked about before, was just that if it had just been snow and that was it, we would have been able to shovel this and plow this out of the way a lot easier, and then we would not, we wouldn't have all this stuff sitting around as much. We've had some sun, but that ice topping that we got on it has just made these things rock solid.
Yep.
And so every day I go out and I'm kind of kicking my foot against the snow a little bit on the side, that sidewalk that runs through the neighborhood. And I'm like, can I get any of this off yet? Not quite yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only chance to have shoveled it was right as it was falling. It was once it got in place, you were dead.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I was reliving that in my mind the other night, thinking it was blowing around a lot, but I probably should have just gone ahead and gotten out with a shovel or the snowblower and just dealt with it. And to do that, because after that, it just became really hard. If I hadn't had, I was grateful to have some help from my church kids who helped, dig out big part of my driveway and stuff like that. But it has been a mess. So, I've mentioned, in the county, Montgomery County, and I don't know if Virginia has been the same way or not. Montgomery County has received a ton of criticism for its snow plowing efforts. And, I'm willing to give, they deserve some criticism. Other parts of that is just like they're dealing with really difficult conditions, but now this is an opportunity, is now with the warming temperature, it's an opportunity to get kind of clean things up and at least, get it so that it'll melt off, in the right fashion. They don't have to move every single inch of snow. They just need to get the roadways clear and safe, make sure the sidewalks are clear and safe. And so I decided to go ahead and throw out, something to the next door people, and knowing full well the results I was probably likely to get. And I just said, if the county really cared about us, they'd be out there, using this warm weather to go and, clean the streets and whatnot. And I got some of the responses were just like, people were like, yeah, it's not happening here. Or people who reported that they've actually seen, dump trucks and front end loaders, and the county was doing it. And others just like, it's like, who are you to talk about that? We need to. It's almost kind of like, can't we all get along? Why are you criticizing them? Nobody called. Nobody.
You don't want to be criticized.
I love it. Look, I don't go on Nextdoor very often, but every once in a while I think it's like, what can I say that will just ignite the people?
Poke the bear. Yeah.
I hear you. Poke them right in the eye. So, probably not the most neighborly thing to be doing there, but it doesn't take long before it just takes off.
Yeah, that's right.
So
it's a lot of bitter people with time on their hands.
Yeah, I just kind of sit back and go, oh yeah, you guys, you don't even understand what I've just done to you.
That's right.
So liberal intolerance, all that stuff, whatever. All right. Yeah, no, I'm grateful for the warmer weather for now, and at least we'll get something there, and maybe I can. Look, I'm seeing little pieces of grass, right, a little on the edges,
like the first inch or two, yeah,
right. right. So
That's dirty brown.
I
Soaked,
might
nasty
be at
grass.
0.00005% or something like this, but it's
Yeah.
getting there.
Yeah.
My wife was wondering what do the birds do and the wildlife do in this situation. I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit tough right now because they can't, it's just
There's not
we
much
still
food
have
out
several
there.
inches. I think those deer aren't even really breaking the surface. Well, maybe
Yeah.
now that's warmed up, maybe they finally can and
Yeah.
get through a little bit. But anyway, yeah, what's happening though, because like you can hear, for me, it's like yesterday I was sitting, in my office and all of a sudden, and that's the snow falling off the roof finally.
Mhm.
And so it's like, yeah, okay, good. So we're making progress
There you
and
go.
all of that. All right, news. It's we're never short of news. So I was I was looking around for something more, an update on around. I just kind of was curious, and you know the reports vary all over the place. But I did look at an ABC report. So they had 6,400 deaths. I had seen reports before of 6,800. I thought it was going to grow, but the thing I hadn't really paid attention to before was that they have 30,000. According to this, they said 30,000 deaths are under review.
30,000 deaths are under
Under
review.
review,
Okay.
and over 50,000 arrests. Since
Okay.
and I'm like, under review. What it's like
Yeah.
you're trying to determine whether or not it was really the government's. If you had 30,000 people die, this is probably all not by natural causes.
I mean, are these 30,000 people, are they 85 and older? I mean,
Yeah.
what's the deal?
Yeah, there's a little sus, at this point.
Also, but all these figures like out of Iran is, that might as well come from the Gaza Ministry of Health, right? You don't have any idea.
Right. I mean, that
is
is the problem, right? That is the problem with this is that, anytime we're dealing with, overseas, any of these international things, is that, when we're looking at these conflicts, in that fog of war, protests, whatever, the figures are all over the place because you have to look at who's reporting this and on all of this. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. But nevertheless, I think that what's happened in Iran, I mean, and we've talked about this before, the number of people that have been killed and number arrested has been astonishing at this point in time.
Yeah. Obviously, they're trying to shoot their way out of this problem with mixed results. I don't know if they're arresting a whole lot of people. I can't imagine they're holding a lot of people because they don't really have the prison space, and law and order is broken down, and I mean if they're arresting them, they're not keeping them for long. So I guess it's probably like the people who get arrested chasing ICE people around. They arrest you and book you, and nothing really happens after that. So I don't know what's going on over there. But I will say that it does look like the government's losing control over important elements of the country. Like I don't know how long people are going to put up with no schools. Right, there's no schools in Iran. Everything's closed from grade school through university because you can't. It's not safe to do it, and factions and this and that and the other. How long have they put up with that? A lot of public services are extant. Electricity is irregular or non-existent. Things like that. It's like comforts of life are being just forgotten about because to maintain the power of the mullahs, right, to keep them in power. I guess Trump is talking about he's moved a bunch of ships, military equipment into the area. We're supposedly amassing forces on the border in Azerbaijan and somewhere nearby there. So Turkmenistan, maybe it is, that border Iran, and we're putting troops on the border and so forth. So we're looking like we're going to attack. The Trump haters are, oh, we didn't go to war. Congress approved this, that, the other. But I don't think it's going to be a war. I think if we do something in this, and I'm not convinced that the whole purpose in this is not to, we're showing our hand, basically. We're showing, hey, we got a bunch of aces sitting here, do what you want to do. But, there's a lot of stuff arrayed against you, trying to win the war like that. we have to go, we have to take action. I think it'll be brief and decisive. I think they're looking at this not as we're not going to go claim territory. We're going to go decapitate the leadership. And I don't think you'll have a few leftists in the U.S. and elsewhere who are mad about that, but 98% of the world is going to be thumbs up on getting rid of the mullahs.
Yeah, well, I still think there's a risk too, of the arrests, that some people will just disappear.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not justice is not being cleanly meted out there right now.
Yeah. So when all is said and done, I mean, if we do get the regime change that we're trying to achieve, who knows exactly what the final figures will be for those lives that have been lost or people that they can't account for at this point in time. So we'll be keeping our eye out on that. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, right? Anyway, so she called for a snap election, which was, some people thought it was rather surprising, but I thought she was actually in a fairly good position to do so, and she was vindicated because they crushed it. I mean,
it was more than a fairly good position.
Yeah,
she was in a terrific position.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, not everybody who thinks they're in good position.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're rolling the bones when you do that. Ask what's her name in the UK? May.
Theresa May is my barometer for
misreading the public, right? Also, in May's case, like there were some intervening events from the time she made the decision to the time of the election. Some stuff happened that really hurt her. But in this case, so this lady's not only won, she has a big enough majority in the Japan's Congress. It's what is it? Parliament.
It's a parliament.
It's a parliament. Yeah. She could amend the Constitution if she wants to. She can make any change she wants. She's like got 4/5 of the legislatures in Japan, right? They cleaned house. So, that just goes to show you, people, you can say what you want about Trump, but all over the world, people are looking at what he's doing and voting for it. You give me a candidate who looks like Trump and I will vote for him. All over the world. South America is, they had the measure that to censor the U.S. for its attack on, for capturing Maduro, right? And they had, Mexico was pushing it and all this, Brazil. And now all these people, the rest of the country said, no, we're not condemning Trump for that. He's doing the right thing. So, his his impact on world affairs is colossal. And I still see these things. Like, don't you wish it was Kamala? It's like, why would I possibly wish it was Kamala? She wouldn't have done any of this. She wouldn't have made any of this difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see the contrast here. I mean, you're right about, Theresa May, she misread things, and in Great Britain, it gets to be tricky. That is, to me, a very unruly and unpredictable bunch. That the whole trying to govern with their legislature, with their parliament, is really hard.
And I'll tell you something too that goes in there. I'll let you finish, but we have two parties. And you get a lot of, we need more than two parties. That's terrible choices, blah, blah, blah. But it means that the deal making, everyone knows the calculus. And, you don't have the far right joining with the far left to screw the center like you do, and all these coalitions that don't make sense but harm the country, right? We have two sides, and you're on one side or the other, and those two sides have to negotiate some stuff. Right. And the 2 is the right number for negotiations, So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think that you've made this point before. We've talked a lot about, how our system is so much better than this parliamentary system, because you wind, more often than not, you wind up with, no one winning the majority, and they have to then find and actually create a government, with the other factions. And that always is a precarious situation when you're doing so. Now, in the case of, now what's happening in the UK, and I'll go back to Japan in a minute, is that, the conservatives, the Tories got swept out. I mean, they got crushed. And so Keir Starmer and the Liberal Party, they're just, they've got everything they want. But now, they could collapse because of Jeffrey Epstein,
right.
Because of these like other forces that are coming in now.
And some other things are happening that are kind of forcing him to the right too, to Starmer to the right. So, he's had to get closer to Trump on a number of things, economically, trade wise, engagement in Iran and elsewhere. So, he's, I think he understands that the energy that took out the Tories was not pro him or his party. It was pro, it was pro get the Tories out of here, which is different.
Right. It's basically anybody but the Tories would be good for me, at this point in time, and the economic situation has not really improved that much in Great Britain. And that's part of the thing that's
gotten worse. Yeah.
Right. It's the undercurrent of going on there. So, the liberal, Starmer, if he wasn't aware of this before, is like, you can't, it's hard. I mean, any politician that promises that can turn the economy around on a dime kind of a thing, like that they're going to make it better, it's not that easy. I mean, there are so many forces at play, much of that are not in your direct control. And then you find yourself having made these promises, and then you throw particularly with liberals, you throw your liberal policies at it. You only make it worse, in the end. So, with Tanaka, I mean, she's got this window of opportunity where she could do things. She said, right, she crushed it. She's got the super majority. It's the biggest election victory for the Liberal Democratic Party in Japan in its 71-year history, and it was done by a woman of all things.
And a very male-oriented culture,
Right.
It's not like a woman winning here. I mean, that would be a feat, right? But like, there's women all over politics already here, and women all over, the corporate world and everything succeeding. This is new to Japan.
Yeah, this is a very big cultural shift. She was very aligned with Trump, and she's a very different kind of person. I mean, she's a heavy metal drummer.
Yeah.
I just love that about her. It's just like, this is a very she did that drumming session. I was like, oh my goodness, it's just like, it's amazing. She's just brought a whole different perspective to things. The Japan, Japan, Far East, particularly Japan and Korea, particularly. I mean, they are generally very polite cultures, but Japan more so.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, they don't really do a lot of fighting, and you don't find the corruption in Japan as you do in Korea. South Korea's just got issues out the wazoo, and they've had them for decades of just conglomerate corruption and political corruption. You don't see it to that degree in Japan as much. We've had a few, but so far, Tanaka, if she can steer clear of having any of her cabinet ministers, get caught up in any scandals and things like this, she could overhaul things and really do things. But Japan is doing, they're doing pretty well economically at this point in time. Economists keep wondering when the bottom will fall out of that, but they've been saying about that for our economy as well.
Yeah.
And we're still, we're chugging along. I mean,
the best job report in a long time this morning.
Yeah. Well, and the jobs report, I mean, I forgot to look at that before the show, and so I just quickly checked that. Who was it? War? Somebody had actually downplayed that, before it was released, and said expect, kind of softer numbers, and the numbers went in the other direction this time around. Yeah. So it's I don't know. I mean, considering all the layoff announcements that we've had, it's remarkable that we've been able to keep that up and actually grow the jobs at all.
Right, and not just layoff it, but you're a lot of illegal immigrants are out of the job market, and a lot of government workers are gone. I mean, they've really downsized federal government in a way that's probably never happened. So, I mean, you're piling on people, those are not job gains, those are job losses. So to overcome that, and, and manufacturing hiring is still flat, right? Because the plants are, the White House put out a thing last week, like 600 new manufacturing operations that are being built in the United States. Most of it are, forward-thinking industries, AI and so forth. So it's growing and it's growing. The turnaround is occurring. The problem, the challenge for Trump is going to be, voter opinions lock in, right? You have till the summer. Like once we get past the 4th of July, most people have decided whether it's working, and you can have some strong intervening events that change perceptions, but usually, especially when, he's going to get judged on affordability and so forth, you need to be showing your gains before July. So the people, oh yeah, okay, well, he said it would get better and it's starting to get better, right? And so, that's what he needs. What Trump really needs now is an inflation report to come in and say 2.1 or something, so you're right down by that federal target, and it's obviously lower than it was before. And all the indicators that lead inflation results are trending toward helping him there. So, I think that's the key to him. If he can start going around the country saying, look, it's dropping, it dropped again. We're adding jobs, we're dropping inflation. You really can't argue against the tariffs if we're adding jobs and dropping inflation. And B, our whole plan's working. It's coming online. And with all these manufacturing starts, this is just the beginning of something big. So that's the case he's trying to make by November to preserve the majorities for the midterms.
Well, he's got a big job in trying to change a lot of the public opinion, because once
the other
again,
thing is too, I was saying that is like the thing we were talking about at the very top of the show is the snowcrete, right? The weather. So like he can't Trump loves the big outdoor rallies and so do his fans and so forth. So you can't do that now, right? That'll be something that unfolds in the spring and summer. But I think you will see it, and I think that'll also have an impact.
Yeah, he needs to make some kind of push and have a good cohesive strategy there, because once again, I take it with a grain of salt because it is the news media, but I think they're really loving it right now because they're piling on about when they find people who are disaffected, particularly when they can find Republicans or people who say they're Republicans who are not, they're not so confident about Trump and his plan anymore, and then they look at the Hispanic voters, they look at the black voters that kind of went our way in bigger numbers in the last election, and what that they seem to be going back home to the Democrats for this midterm. But there are a lot of variables between now and then, but perception, he needs to change that we are making inroads, significant inroads on things. And I don't know, beef prices are like record highs. I don't know what you do. You can't just magically create cattle, and
right. And they're starting to import it, from Argentina and elsewhere. So you'll start to get competition, and that's a market forces thing. We have cattle. We're not low on cattle. That's not the deal. So that's a kind of thing that should bounce back. So but I think costs are a bit, and of course this Trump drugs, Trump RX or whatever, I think it'll be hard to argue that's not a positive when people start paying for drugs and seeing that they don't cost near as much anymore. Nowhere near as much anymore. Huge savings over what they were paying. So, he's got it lined up, but but the inflation has got to hit for him. He's got to be able to say, look, it's going down, it's working, stay the course.
Yeah, that number, yeah, it's pretty hard to get that number down very much, but if he can show continued progress, then that's good. We're at what, 2.7-ish, we can get down to 2.5, 2.4, you said 2.1, that would be
core
huge.
Is like 0.07 or 07 now. So
yeah.
If it's the core is at 07, then he should be able to get overall to 2 or 2.1.
Well, we'll see. There's so many different things. There's an argument in Argentina about how I didn't realize in Argentina how they calculate inflation is that they've been dealing with a 20-year-old set of standards and whatnot, and Milei is actually not willing to abandon those and update that to reflect things, though, because right now at least I guess they've got inflation down to like in the 30% range. You can always point to other countries and say, look at those guys.
Yeah, that's right.
but Malay had
But from 1,200 to 30 is pretty good.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's the people are feeling better about things. You know, that it's interesting to see to the kind of the Trump effect over time in foreign countries too. My wife had gone to the dentist just recently, and the one, I guess it was a hygienist or whatever, somebody working over there. I guess she's from El Salvador, and her dad just had moved back to El Salvador. Unfortunately, he was on dialysis and had some issues, and I guess some complications. And then he wasn't there very long before complications arose, and then he passed away. But he had been away from El Salvador for decades because of the strife, you know, the guerrillas and all this stuff. But you know, the Trump effect because of Bukele, you know, makes a difference. You know, people, you know, the same thing is happening in Venezuela. People, you know, Venezuelans are like, you know, I'm trying to now see whether or not trying to find out, can I move back?
Yeah,
you know, is it safe to move back? Can I go back, and can I move back to my homeland? So the tug, you know, and I understand it, the tug of their homeland is like, you know, life in America is great, but I want to go back to where I was born. And Trump is really making that possible in a lot of countries. For after decades, people had just been fleeing. So
most consequential president of our lifetime, you would say.
In that way, yeah. I mean, I have these little arguments with my wife about Trump because I like to poke her too, because, and we know it's all in good fun, but it's just like, look, how about this? And she will admit about some of the stupid things he says or does, and kind of wishes he would kind of turn off the True Social sometimes, and things like that, you know, and get a handle. But you know, other than that, I mean, you know, I think there's some good things, but sometimes I think he shoots himself in the foot by just kind of going one extra step beyond where he needed to be. And it's like, you know, you're doing fine, and then you do this, and then it gets because then the media is all over them, right? I mean, it's all over for that one thing, and then all the good stuff goes down the line.
It's easy for them to ignore it.
Oh yeah, sure it is. I mean, you know, and it's still, I mean, we still have this Epstein thing hanging over, you know, and I mean, this is such a Trump derangement syndrome thing. I don't know when this is ever going to end, because it's always like more stories about people and all this stuff. Like, you know, what's the point here? I mean, what are we learning here?
Right. I was going to say, one of the things is like, we've finally reached the point where the sob stories don't really have a lot of impact. You know, it used to be sob stories could turn the whole debate, right? Oh, we found a mother who is terribly, you know, affected by Trump's policy on whatever, right? And it's really hurting her and her 3 little kids. And, you know, people don't pay attention to that anymore, because they're like, you know, you read long enough, and like, well, they're here illegally, and she was selling weed, and, you know, like, why are we worried about this, right? And it's like all these stories, the ones you see now is, you know, ICE ordered me out of my car. ICE told me to do this, or they were going to shoot me. It's like, okay, if a cop tells you to get out of the car and you don't get out of the car, then what happens from then on, it ain't the cop's fault, right? Then, you know, you may be safe, you may be a completely righteous protester, and your case may be ironclad. But if a cop tells you to get out of the car, get out of the car, right? If you get out of the car peaceably and talk to the cop, you probably get back in the car and drive away, right? You might get a ticket or whatever. But if he tells you to get out of the car and you want to fight him, why do I have to get out of the car? You know, they've dealt, you know, the first day this wasn't happening, you know, but they've dealt with 10,000 people like you before, and they've had it. So if you want to mess with them, you're going to get, you know, you mess with a bull, you get the horns. And that's what's happening now. And it's like, you have this guy, he was just riding along, going home, and all of a sudden the cops made him get out of the car. It's like, you read the story, you get down about the 8th paragraph. He was a known protester, and he was blowing the whistle, and he was following the cops. So that's why the cop pulled him over. So then he told him to get out so he could see what was going on, because, you know, and then the guy starts shuffling through stuff on his desk, and he's like, you know, you know, it's on his car seat. Oh, well, I shouldn't feel threatened. That might be a gun or anything. You know, you're not going to get no breaks from cops like that, right? And you shouldn't. They're trying to go home that night. They don't want to die. So, you know, cooperate with them, right? That's your at that moment in your life. That's what you have to do.
Yeah. So I mean, it just underlies, whatever what I continue to say. It's just like, look, when you're dealing with law enforcement, follow their instructions. Okay. If they, like you said, if they say get out of the car, you get out of the car. If they say stay in the car, you stay in the car. If they say please hand over your license, registration, whatever, you do it. Cooperate with them, and then you're going to be fine. But when you start doing stupid things, you're trying to get in their face and you're arguing with them. You're not you now have already set yourself up for a really big problem.
Right.
So anyway, yeah. So that's we just have there's so many issues with that. Next up, Jimmy Lai. This is a story that just keeps coming up every once in a while. So this goes back to the Hong Kong protests of many years ago. When we were getting lots of reports and we saw these massive protests in Hong Kong about the Chinese government and everything else, which astonished me that it was actually happening. Things have radically changed because China came in there and cracked down, and it's just everything has just changed. Businesses have fled Hong Kong.
Can you believe it? Who would have thought?
Oh yeah. Imagine that.
You try to tell them, you try to tell them, leave Hong Kong alone. Just take the money, right? Just take your tax money and whatever. But you can't do it. There he is. Yeah, that's right. Compounded problems.
So Jimmy Lai, he was publishing a newspaper and he was putting stories out about this. And so, predictably, of course, they arrested him. They on trumped up charges. He's been sitting in jail for a while. And now they've sentenced him to like 20 years in prison. The guy's like 9 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's not, he's somewhere in my age.
You got to make 20 years in prison.
Yeah. Not in a Chinese prison.
Not going to happen.
No, that's it. That's a death sentence basically. And this is just that what you get under communist rule is this, you don't agree with what we say, then what we do is we're going to arrest you. We will throw you in jail and you will never see the light of day again. So the Wall Street Journal, I commend them. The editorial page has been upholding and championing his cause. Unfortunately, there's not much I don't know that anybody can do a whole lot about this at this point in time.
Trump can use he'll find a little diplomatic lever.
I'm hoping that he finds a way to do something about this.
We'll give you something that we don't really care about to give him back.
Yeah, because throwing this guy in jail is just a travesty. But we've seen that. They used to allow Tiananmen Square remembrances. Those are gone. It's just this is a total crackdown on any kind of free speech of any kind at all. Which China was supposed to be this country theoretically. They were trying to sell everybody like we want to be more like the West. We want your
the people, and we let them in the WTO, right?
Yeah.
So the other day, a little report came out that said, what has happened as a result of Trump's tariffs and his messing with China to get the results he wants is our trade deficit with China is back to where it was before they joined the WTO. So the 25 years that they've been taking over our markets and so forth has all been erased. And the manufacturing base that enabled them to finance their system, so forth, is gone and not coming back. It was like, Vietnam, Thailand, and no China, basically, and elsewhere in the world are making that stuff, making cheap Chinese stuff cheaper than the Chinese. So, they made some plays that didn't work, and they're in some serious economic trouble now. And there's recurring reports of shuffling at the top of the leadership and who's in charge and who's about to be in charge, and whether Xi has firm grasp on what's going on over there.
Yeah, the thing, Trump's squeeze on some of these countries has put the squeeze, has also put the squeeze on China in that sense too. Not only the tariffs, but China's looking for new trade partners for their goods, and it's been a rough go for them. They find some, but it's the U.S. has a voracious appetite for goods. as we were talking earlier, I mean, the economy still is kind of moving along because we continue to consume, we continue to buy. I mean, even that I mentioned, the beef prices. Beef prices may be at or near record highs, but it doesn't slow the consumption of beef that much.
Right. That's right.
People still want their beef,
That's
right?
right.
So supply and demand. It's like, oh well, you want beef. Well, we don't have as much. We're not churning out as much beef, but as we used to, we're gonna have to charge more. People are like, okay, that's fine. I want my steak. I
Yeah.
want my. I can't. I just need to do this.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's an example of one though. He did that to get another concession. Right. He backed off on eliminating the 400,000 slots. So he did shut down the Confucius Institutes in all the colleges, but he is letting the 400,000 people still come in. The students still come in.
Yeah, well, I mean, but foreign students coming into to attend our universities, I think the attendance is down, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
there's a lot fewer applying, and from all over the world.
and that's hurting a lot of those colleges and universities
Do
because
not care.
they charge the top dollar to those guys,
Yeah.
for coming and studying and everything like
Tough
that.
noogies. Do not care.
So,
Get some real problems, bro. I mean, universities, they've strayed so far from like why we built them, that it's time for some corrective measures, right? It's time for some harsh market correction. And I think that's what's coming. Like one year, you remember University of Missouri, they had the wild riot and the woman professor was screaming we still see her picture because she was so, nuts, right? Screaming at the students and whatnot. Next year, applications to University of Missouri were 25% of what they had been the previous year. So they lost 3/4 of their applicants, right? There was 3/4 decrease in applicants. So that's a big flagship state university. If they're losing 3/4 of their applicants over this, right? Think about what's going on all over the country. So, and there's also this big push, hey, send your kids to trade school, they'll be on the job making money faster, they'll make more money, it's more consistent, blah, blah, blah. Right. That's happening too. So I think what you'll eventually see is a big raft of people who go to trade school, get out, work those jobs when they're young and healthy and can do it. And meanwhile, on the side, they're studying something in college that they can do in midlife. You get to 35 or 40, all of a sudden you have your degree and you're ready to do something that's not so difficult, physically difficult. So, I think you're going to see trends like that. So I think we're headed in the right direction on sort of punishing colleges for their extremism. And I think, we have 3 years to do it with the Trump administration. I think that should be full on to save higher learning in the country. It needs to be severely disciplined right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, so my kids all went to BYU, so it's a church school, it's a private institution, so it doesn't have, doesn't rely on federal dollars to survive and things like that, and so
get some federal money, right?
So there's some money, but not, I mean, nothing that they don't.
They're not Hillsdale. They don't have the purity.
Right. They don't have that, but they, it's. Sometimes I wonder. I mean, they're still, they're not immune from from having some woke LDS professors and stuff like that, or students in there.
It always surprises me. Like I always think of LDS as they're all conservative, but they're not. There's a lot.
No. And I was setting this up because I've done a lot of work with the young missionaries that have served in this area for the past almost 8 years now, and they come out for 18, 24 months, they go back home. A large majority of them go out to BYU to attend school in Provo. Some wind up in Rexburg, which used to be the junior college.
Beautiful place up in Idaho. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well, yes and no, because what happens is if you get out of the habit of being a student, it's really hard to get back in.
yeah. I mean, I understand what he's
Depends
saying
on the
here, but
person.
I agree more with you because it's like the learning thing almost has to be like continuous,
Yeah,
or at least somewhat. I mean, like the the kids who decide to come on an LDS mission, they are foregoing their education for a year and a half to 2 years, but they come right back, pick it up, finish. They'll go. A lot of them will go to grad school, do all kinds of things, and then they just continue on in their life. But it struck me. I saw something. I was looking on Facebook the other day, and one of the girls who had gone home, probably that's probably been a couple of years at least now. Um, she had a Facebook story, which I didn't get into because I just saw the brief little clip at the beginning, and there were a bunch of students apparently at BYU protesting their recruitment by CPB, on campus, and I'm like, what? it's like their jobs for heaven's sakes. Um, it's not ICE, okay? Anyway,
yeah.
it's a Custom and Border
Border
Patrol.
Patrol. Yeah,
It's a different mechanism in there, and this is not exactly the greatest job market in the world. BYU actually is an area where a lot of recruiters like to go to because they like the profile of Latter-day Saint students and
yeah.
BYU students. So they go there, but yeah, it's like you have a few students out there protesting. It's like, you people are just, you're just dumb.
Yeah.
but they've been caught up. It just
Well,
amazes me
yeah, I
how.
mean, that's what I'm going to say is like, so why does that happen is, the media, all you ever hear about ICE is, oh, they took a 5-year-old kid, chained him to a pole for 5 hours. No, they didn't. Right. I mean, it's all made to be as horrible as it could be. And they're just grabbing people off the streets. No, they're not. They know exactly who they're looking for. And anyone else who gets grabbed up by them did so because they put themselves in the situation, right? They're not there to collect a bunch of extra people. They're there to collect the bad guy they're headed to get. And if the local government would hand them over at the jail, you wouldn't see ICE at all, right? You don't see ICE, camped out on the streets of Houston, because when Houston arrests someone who's deportable, they call ICE and say, come get them. Even Houston, hyper liberal jurisdiction, Houston hands over all the people, right? So you don't have the ICE problem. The ICE just carries them out. You don't see, there's no film of the routine, right? Oh yeah, this guy was in cuffs, and then we put him in different cuffs and put him in the van and took him away. You don't see that, right? What you see is the fighting on the street, because that's photogenic, and that's what the media wants you to think of this. So, I talk to people frequently about this who, their idea of this is that ICE is just going down up and down the streets and just stopping and harassing whoever they see and demanding their papers and all this stuff. And that's not it at all. But that's what's presented to them in the media, and they don't know any better.
Yeah, I don't. It's interesting too because the church has New Providence is Dallin Oaks, you know
Mm-hmm.
former Utah Supreme Court judge. He's been a high-ranking member in the church circles for decades, and what he's about like 92 years old or whatever he is right now,
Yeah.
and so I don't recall this happening, but I don't follow the history of this. So BYU has these what they call weekly devotionals on campus at the Marriott Center, and yesterday it was President Oaks, and I wonder, if some of this activism, that they're seeing by some of the students, kind of just said, I need to go there and I need to talk to the students. And I watched part of that talk. I forgot to set my timer or whatever for doing that. And so I caught only the bottom. But what I saw was, I mean, it was a talk directed at the students, and it was really, I think, about for them to kind of remind them who they are and how to center themselves. There's no political talk in this at all. It's all about religion because the school is church owned, and
Right.
reminding them about their faith. And I just kind of wonder whether or not that played a part, in this, like, why did the church prophet come to BYU to address all these students? Because maybe he was seeing something that was kind of disturbing about some of them, not a lot, but some of them who were drifting in the wrong direction and just kind of wrong. These are, kind of went through, these are the important things in your life. This is how you succeed in life, and kind of kind of did that out. I mean, it would, it's kind of equivalent for the Pope to come and talk to the youth, right? And to kind of remind them of centering them on the faith. Young people need that.
Yeah,
they need to be reminded of that, because
but every once in a while, El Jefe himself got to come say it.
Oh yeah,
it's not your parish priest or your local leaders. That's good. That's what they should do too, right? But sometimes the boss has to be the one in front of the microphone. I met him years ago, Oates. He came to Heritage, and one of the things he joked about was that he was one of the younger people in the leadership of the church. They call me boy and junior and stuff, So,
yeah, well, I mean, because the succession is just, it's basically, there's an order to it, right?
Yeah,
and
you basically got to die to get out.
Yeah, and he and Russell Nelson, who was the previous prophet, they were called to serve onto the Quorum of the 12 on the same day. So they were. It's just that as I understand, I guess Russell Nelson was ordained first, and then Dallin Oates was ordained second. So if they had flipped the script, it would have been different. But it's just by that, on that same day. And it's pretty rare, I think, in church history to have two prophets like that had actually been sustained in church on the same day by the church membership of the same, that wound up, two members of the Quorum of 12 that wound up being prophets on the same day. I don't know, I haven't delved into church history enough to know that, but it's just kind of an interesting thing. But as you said, El Jefe needs to come, and when El Jefe speaks, people listen, right? Kind of,
that's right.
And so you need to, no matter what your faith is, sometimes you need to hear from the leader to kind of reorient yourself, because you can, thanks to the media, social media, whatever, you can lose your way very quickly.
That's like Ray Kroc and Walt Disney being in the same platoon in the army. How'd that happen? Hypercriticism ice is a political tactic for the left. Yeah, it is. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, no doubt.
Campaign fodder, and they're, the media, and I love that going. There's a lot of people out there now that think the media is in the bag for Trump, and I'm
like, what?
I'm trying to look at this thing cockeyed and see if I can see that. I'm not seeing. But it's a widely shared view now that the media is in the bag for Trump. It's unbelievable.
All right, we're getting around here, but we still have many more things to run through. We'll do the best we can. Cuba running out of oil, so this is a big crisis for them. They've told planes not to come to Cuba because they can't refuel them.
Refuel there. That's right.
Yeah, and I heard an ABC report that basically, I guess at night, the citizens in Cuba, they run generators because the power grid is in such sad shape. But if there's no oil, the generators won't run either. I mean,
that's right.
So this is a huge problem. I mean, this is another country that's getting squeezed. Regime change looks like it might just be around the corner if this happens, because if you run out of oil, I'm not, what's their alternative? I mean, where are they going to go? I mean,
I don't think they've delved big into green energy over there. But and they were depending on Venezuela. So when Maduro got shut down, and the U.S. is basically blocking the path in the Caribbean from Venezuela to Cuba. They're out. They can't get it. They can't get oil, and they are not worth people trying to wildcat it and run the blockade and so forth, because that's what do you get if you're the guy who has credit for saving Cuba? What does that get you? Right? Not really anything, right? So I'm with you. I think that we finally may be looking at the beginning of the end of the regime there. And I think that's one that where I think Trump, he's the Secretary of State as a Cuban, that we're uniquely prepared to jump in there and solidify that victory for humanity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if there's regime change there, I'm sure there are plenty of Cubans in Miami that would be like, "Oh yeah, I'll go back, or at
Oh
least I'll buy
yeah,
a home." Right? I mean, they would love to go back to their country and help rebuild it and do whatever,
yes,
get out,
indeed.
out of under the the whole communist thumb.
And you think about, like, you were talking, you mentioned the Marriott's earlier, right? Maybe Marriott Center or something out there at Brigham
Right.
Young. The Marriott's and the Hyatt people and so forth. Cuba's a dream to them, like a big, long Caribbean island to build golf courses and resorts up and down one side and the other, right? Because I mean, that is an enormously big play, right, for them. So, when you say, "Oh, we're just making money for billionaires," like, yeah, but we're making money for a country that is completely impoverished, right? And who's going to work at those golf courses and resorts and all that kind of stuff? The people who don't have anything to eat now. So, things could only go up for Cuba if it can get rid of this communist government and get aligned with the West.
Imagine that turning into a potential, island paradise.
Yeah,
Modern vehicles, reliable electricity and internet. You know, you,
yeah.
you know, you can buy what you need to at the grocery store. I mean, you don't have shortages of this, that, and the other.
And
Um,
also think of the short-sightedness of Obama going over there and blessing what they were doing. Just keep this up. Just keep these people in dire poverty, and a few elites have all the money and everyone else is hand to mouth. Like, let's just do that more. Yeah, good for you. And at least you're being nice to us, and that's really what's important, And so, that set those people back, what, 20 years, 15 years,
yeah, Obama and his Cuba policy, that was just not good.
That was not good. That set things back a long way, and then Trump's about to fix it.
Yeah, yeah. This is something that I didn't expect to see in my lifetime. I think I'm still going to be around just long enough to see that happen.
Yeah,
The way we're going. I mean, this is
yeah.
this kind of makes my head spin, but it keeps going after these countries. All right, got to keep going. Big headline story. This isn't, to me, this is interesting because of the amount of attention it's received. Because Savannah Guthrie, NBC, Today Show co-host, her mom is missing, been missing since February 1. They've actually got some doorbell camera footage. Not sure who the person is. They're really trying. So here we're 10 days into this thing, and to a large extent, actually, I was thinking that how the coverage of Nancy Guthrie, this 84-year-old woman, has kind of even eclipsed the Winter Olympics, except for a couple of those anti-American things going on there with some of our athletes. But it's here's this 2-week span or thereabouts when NBC pushes the Olympics, but a lot of apparently television stations they break into their Olympic coverage for anything they can get on Nancy Guthrie.
Yeah, that's another one. Trump has ordered all resources being
Right,
directed
right,
towards it. This
yeah.
woman despises Trump, right? He
Yes, exactly.
despises, like, her social media feed is nasty anti-Trump. So, I mean, that just goes to show you.
Yeah, the president of the United States has said we are going to give you everything we can to help find your mother. I mean,
Yeah,
that is amazing, and and the president happens to be Donald Trump, by the way, who you have really
you
disparaged.
and your mother have destroyed on social
Yeah,
media. So,
so it's yeah. I mean, but and I feel for Savannah Guthrie. I mean, I
that
don't,
is,
10 days. I mean, she's not doesn't have her meds probably and all these things. I mean, this is it's serious. I don't understand everything that's going on, and I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess if I had an aged mother living alone, right? If she was living alone, that I would make sure I had all kinds of cameras and redundant cameras or something like that, at
yeah.
least in the main living area or something like that, which would be some would be impossible or hard to find because they just don't have really any good idea of what happened, which is unfortunate in this
These
day and age.
my cousin, his other grandmother that I'm not related to, like, she had dementia and she wandered out of her house and no one saw her for days and days and days. And my cousin was over there at her house, like, watching it over and so forth. And he's out in the yard, and These guys pull up from the other side of the tracks and they put her out of the car, gave her to him, and drove off. So, you know, you don't have a right to ask those people any questions. Who knows what she did for those 4 or 5 days or what was done to her, you know, but, you know, they just brought her back, gave it to her, you know. So it's like this woman, you know, these guys were from 15 miles away, right? The complete other side of town. So, you know, how does that happen? How did she get there? Who knows?
Yeah. And I guess, you know, Nancy Guthrie didn't live in a very populous area either, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you could go and request a lot of, you know, doorbell footage camera from the neighbors,
right?
Because there wasn't, you know, she said. So that's, you know, look, I don't know, you know, everybody makes their own choices in life in terms of how they live. But I'm telling you is that, you know, as a person that continues to get older, which we all do, is that the last thing I'm doing is living, you know, it's like you look at Roscoe Bartlett, okay?
Yeah.
I love, you know, Roscoe Bartlett is off the grid. He's somewhere and like, you know, anything could happen. Nobody would know for a long time potentially because he's just out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know,
we have no idea if he's alive.
Right. You know, you wouldn't know. I mean, you know, and I don't remember with Gene Hackman and his wife. I mean, there were a lot of questions about people live in these areas. And it's like, you know, actually, you know, there is actually great comfort and security of having a few neighbors with some of this technology because
it's also connected to your world. You know, it's like, you know, we're the phone atomized us, right? You can be, you know, it's like I tell people, like you go to DMV, right? You're reading your phone, you're reading all this stuff, and you're typing out messages to own the libs and all this, and they call your number. You're like, dang, I got to get up now. I was having fun reading my. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Bad idea.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But you know, but you get so into that phone, right, that you don't need other people. And then, but actually, like you're wired to need other people. That's a natural thing. And so, you know, I think that we need to look at like how disconnected we've become and what to do about that.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll do a couple more things and then wrap it up. I just wanted to get your opinion on it. Trump, he wants to reverse the endangerment finding.
Yay! That's a huge.
This is something I know that's kind of up your alley too.
Yeah. You know, so what the endangerment finding said was that carbon is a dangerous substance, and since it's dangerous, they have the right to regulate it. And so, in the course of regulating it, you got, you know, the Clean Power Plan, which was ruled unconstitutional, and you know, all this other stuff that made energy more expensive, harder to harvest, and so forth. Because, you know, the goal is to keep this dangerous carbon in the ground. I mean, you know, no carbon, no trees, right? No carbon, no life. So, you know, it was always stupid, and it was always a pretext for control over how energy is harvested and brought to the market, right? That's all it's ever been, is aimed at industry. At the energy industry doesn't have anything to do with things that actually endanger us. So, you know, it was always a joke. It was always a horrible lie. And thank goodness that we finally got the power to get rid of it. That came from, there was a case that overturned the case that created the endangerment finding or locked it in, basically, was Massachusetts versus EPA, and the Supreme Court overturned it in the previous term.
Yeah, and I guess the environmentalists will be fighting this, but it'll take years. It may take years to do that if they're going to go to the courts.
I don't think you'll ever see that it come back, because, you know, even if the political climate changes and you had Democrats in charge, you can't really make that argument anymore, because, you know, it's been warmer when carbon was lower. It's been hotter when carbon was higher than it is now. So, you know, it doesn't, the link between carbon and global warming has been severed. And I think it would be a big, hard policy climb to do it again. And I don't think they've got enough other stuff they want to do that won't be a priority.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of data since all of that. So we should say, you know,
that's right.
All right. Last but not least, we'll finish with Bad Bunny versus Turning Point USA halftime show.
Okay.
Now, I didn't watch the Super Bowl because I've boycotted the NFL since Colin Kaepernick. You know, I've been reading some stories and whatnot. I don't know Bad Bunny from Bugs Bunny. you know, at this point in time. But, you know, so he's a Puerto Rican singer or somebody, anyway, and he did most of his program in Spanish. I have seen reports about his lyrics are just offensive. They're just really, they're horrible.
He wouldn't have gotten away with saying that stuff in English.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
And now the FCC is looking into, you know, whether that matters, right? If you say the stuff in Spanish, are you still in trouble? You know, I don't know.
Okay, great, wonderful.
I mean,
just go ahead and swear and use all those other words in a language that most people, you know, a lot of people don't know. And this, it'll be fine because, you know, we're Americans and most of us speak English and we don't understand, you know, whatever.
I didn't understand it. I watched it. I didn't understand what it was, and I saw the lyrics. I'm like, wow.
Well, you know, so my thing is it's just that, you know, to me it seems like the media reports are like this. They had made this whole halftime show about unity or this, you know, going all over the place, and it was this big show of coming together or whatever like this, but if you didn't understand the lyrics, then you know, there's no, just forget it. I mean, the lyrics were demeaning, they were offensive, they were vulgar. Sorry, I mean that's not it. Compare that to, you know, Turning Point, you know, which, you know, they had on their YouTube channel. I mean, I don't know all the controversy about Kid Rock, whether or not he lip synced or not or whatever.
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? So the Super Bowl attracted fewer people this year than it did last year, according to this report. Like 124 million versus 127 million. I don't know how many people watched the halftime show.
128 million.
Okay.
Halftime.
And then, you know, and then Turning Point USA, as of a day ago, they had 19 million views on their YouTube channel. 5 million of those concurrent. Apparently, you know, I thought actually that was remarkable to me that they went ahead and made this production. And they got 19 million views.
That's when I saw it was 25 million. Maybe
okay. So I mean, this was a day ago or so. Yeah. So it, you know, it continues to grow. I'm sure, but
so almost 1/5 of what Bad Bunny got.
And I for something that is not, you know, in a stadium, is not broadcast.
It makes you change channels, you know, and you don't know when the game's going to start back, and you know all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, that's pretty remarkable, and
anytime you get 25 million Americans to watch anything, you have done something.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't there something about too with like Stephen A. Smith even kind of sided with Turning Point USA on their show versus Bad Bunny or something like that. So it's interesting sometimes with the people who are kind of watching and glomming onto this. Oh, anyway, so anything else?
Kid Rock seemed to be getting converted to Christianity. Sort of, if you look at what he's saying and what he was saying, from what I'm told, you know, he's taking that. What color? I don't know what color that pill is, but he's taking that pill. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know. Well, sometimes those rockers, as they age, they start to they mellow out a little bit, and they're like,
I did some stuff I shouldn't have done.
I have got a lot of sins I've got to make up for. But
and I influenced people to do some things I shouldn't have influenced them to do. And like, I need to start catching up here. So,
yeah. All right. Well, anyway, Super Bowl apparently was a pretty good game. The Seahawks won, who I had predicted they would. And I'm sure you guys were happy in your household as well.
Yeah.
Pretty dominant performance by what I could see.
Yeah, their defense, the offense was kind of lackluster, but defense was good.
And, you know, good for Sam Darnold. I mean, he didn't play in a particularly outstanding game by statistical purposes, but he did what he had to do, and the defense did what it had to do, and they won. So congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks for that victory.
Pretty good sports year for them. Almost got in the World Series and won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, seriously good year for them. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world, and do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America, and we'll see you again next week with another fun show. All right. Bye-bye.